Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Saying that you know the owner almost never works out in your own favor unless you actually do. In the first story, our OP's father met the lady with the "let me talk to your manager" haircut before the dialogue even began. It was clear that something interesting was going to happen, given the fact that Karen was in private territory and certainly wasn't going to give up without a fight. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled mom gets mad after my dad tells her to get off our property. In my town, I live out in the orchards, and there's a lot of U-picks and crops near me, one of them being right next to my house. And once it's around May or June, people from everywhere come to pick fruit. We always have to put out no parking signs and caution tape so people don't park on our property because it's happened before. We only have a small entrance for field workers that take care of the crops since we're renting that part of the land to a farmer that my parents are friends with. Some of the U-Pick customers are nice and understand whenever one of my siblings or I tell them they can't park there, but others are rude and yell at us. But this story in particular stood out to me and happened last summer. So my dad and I had to go to the store to grab some things for a barbecue, and it took almost 20 minutes to get through because people were clogging up the road. But as my dad kept driving, we noticed a minivan parked right on our property. Then a lady with a box of strawberries started walking over to the car. She had the "can I speak to your manager" haircut and PO'd look, so I already knew this was going to be fun. My dad decided to call out to her and let her know she's parked on our land. EL is entitled lady, D is dad. D: excuse me, ma'am? EL: are you talking to me? Yes, I am. I'm just letting you know that you're parked on private property and I have to ask you to please leave. This isn't private property. Who are you to tell me where I can park? It's private property and I want you to leave. Oh, lighten up, will you? There's no other parking spaces. I'm sorry to hear that, but you aren't supposed to be parked there. Did you notice the no parking signs and caution tape? Just lighten up, will you? I already talked to the owner of this property and he said it was perfectly fine to park here. Really? You talked to the owner? Who is he? The U-Pick man. He's the owner and I talked to him. He said it was fine. Points towards the U-Pick. That's funny because I'm the owner and I've never met you until now since you're parked on my property. Now, would you please leave or I'll call the sheriff since you're trespassing? Just lighten up, sir. I was going to leave anyway. Just lighten up. I'm leaving. Good. I don't want you there. She scoffed and got into her car, and finally we were able to get through and leave the area. My dad and I laughed it off on the way to the store. If anyone ever complains at you for not letting them park on your private property, just smile and say, "Okay, leave your car alone. With me. On my private property." We'll see what state it's in when you return. And our next story. Entitled aunt achieves ultra greed status and attempts to steal vehicles willed to nephew. Little backstory. My aunt has always had a greedy streak ever since I was a kid. She's the type of person that will yell at a store employee because something that was advertised isn't in stock and not at that particular store or not on sale and has been banned from entering multiple stores. When my grandmother was on her deathbed, my aunt had talked her into getting my grandfather to sign her on as an executor of her will and ended up taking everything and anything that had the most value. Fast forward. My uncle was my best friend. Always looked up to him as a kid. He was a truck driver, so he'd be gone for a long time, and I remember one summer he even took me with him on the road. But sadly, my uncle had cancer, and while he was in the hospital, my aunt had tried to get him to assign her as an executor of his will, but since he was quick to pick up on what happened when my grandmother passed away, he hired a professional estate lawyer that would take care of everything. If you can imagine, my aunt was not very happy, and was quick to throw out a sob story of how offended she was that her brother couldn't entrust her with an important task. This went on for 2 weeks. Even on his last day in hospice, she still brought it up and was asked to leave by nurses. He passed away peacefully in 2011. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I quickly found out why my aunt was so. We were all asked to gather at my mom's home where the estate lawyer came to tell us who was getting what. So finally my time came on the list and I was surprised to have everything willed to me. What did my uncle will to me? Why, his rig and car, of course. My uncle's rig is a 2008 Lone Star International, which was fully loaded. My uncle's car is a 1966 Chevelle SS. My first thought was, what the hell am I going to do with the big rig? My aunt's first thought, well, she doesn't have a first thought. She just screamed and cussed at the lawyer, saying that I was too sick to have those things and didn't deserve them because I was his nephew and not his sister. The lawyer asked her to sit down, and he would get to her. When my aunt sat down, she looked at me and said, "You're giving me the title to both of those," to which I laughed and said, "In your dreams, maybe." The lawyer kept going down the list, and because my uncle was a legend, he put my aunt at the bottom of the list and said to quote, "To my sister, I am leaving her my luckiest, most important dollar, because all present at this meeting will know that she needs it most," and then was handed the dirtiest-looking Canadian $1 coin, which was sealed in a block of acrylic. Myself, my dad, and my other uncles nearly wet ourselves laughing. My aunt, however, did not find it that funny and instead went into another tirade on how this was unfair and saying that she didn't have anything to hold on that was his. The day passed, and then the nightmare began. My aunt would call over and over and over asking about the truck, wanting to buy the car, if I was going to sell the truck, if I was going to sell the car, all to which I said no. Things got worse when my aunt started saying that she wanted her car and that she had someone that wanted to buy our truck. At this point, I got extremely irritated and said, "It's not your car, it's my car. And my car is staying with me. And it's not our truck, it's my truck. And no one is buying it." A week later, I woke up and heard something, so I went to investigate, and there was a tow truck in the driveway. I quickly told the tow truck driver, who was a friend of my aunt, that if he so much as put a hand on that Chevelle, I'd have him arrested for trespassing and grand theft, and then proceeded to call the police. Cop showed up, and I told the police officer my side of the story. Then he went to my aunt, and the conversation went like this. "Ma'am, can you tell me, is this your car?" "Yes, it is. He won't give it to me." "Ma'am, do you have the title of the vehicle?" "No, I do not. He won't give that to me." "Well, ma'am, I looked at the registration and the title of the vehicle, and he's listed as the owner of the vehicle. That vehicle is legally not yours, and having it towed could land you and your friend prison time for auto theft." "Well, I think I'm the one that should get the car because he can't even take care of himself." "Ma'am, it doesn't matter what you think. What matters is legal ownership, which you do not have." A week later, my aunt had attempted to take me to court for the car, which the case wasn't even put before a judge. My aunt refiled the claim. It went to court, and once I provided a copy of the will, title, and registration, the judgment went in my favor, and my aunt was forced to pay my court costs after dismissing my aunt's claims with prejudice, meaning she can never file that lawsuit again. Then tragedy struck again. This time a great uncle passed away. I was on the will. Again. Can you guess what was left to me? A new car! My great uncle's 1967 Chevy Impala SS, which he restored himself. My great aunt, his widow, was thrilled I got it, but the mood was quickly soured when she realized that my entitled aunt, her niece, really was not thrilled that I got it. This time she stepped it up a notch and skipped the screaming and complaining and instead went to scheming. 3 days after I took possession of the Impala, she rented not just one flatbed, but 2 flatbeds. She managed to get the Impala onto the flatbed and sped off, leaving her boyfriend behind, attempting to get the Chevelle on his flatbed as quickly as he could, while I stood by on the phone with the police. Police quickly caught up with my aunt and arrested her. Her boyfriend was arrested in my driveway and soiled himself in the process. Her and her boyfriend both were hit with 2 counts of motor vehicle theft. Both were charged and found guilty and sentenced to 2 years and 2 days in jail. End points. I haven't spoken to or heard from my aunt since she got out of prison, and I have no desire to. Before she was released from jail, I filed a restraining order against her, and it stood since then, but the last I heard, she's still screaming at store employees, complaining about money, and asking about me and the vehicles. I'm still owner of all 3 vehicles, the Chevelle, the Impala, and the Lone Star International, and I don't plan on selling any of them. I repair and build computers for a living, but more and more I've been getting into auto repair as a hobby. As I live in Canada, I don't drive the Impala or Chevelle during the winter months, but every year I always take my great aunt, who's now 96 years old, to A&W to get a root beer, onion rings, and an ice-cold root beer in the Impala, which is something my great-uncle did for her since he got the Impala in 1970. A very good friend of my uncle's, whom now owns a business, actually rents the Lone Star International from me. He promised me that he'd not get a single scratch or spot of rust on any single part of it, and to this day the Lone Star looks factory new and has been all over the world. The guy that rents the truck even continued doing a little tradition my uncle did, which was to get a decal on the truck for each state, province, territory flag of the places the truck visited. It currently has 31 state decals and 3 province decals on it. My great-aunt isn't in great health and has told me that she put me in her will so that I'll get her cars, which are 2 of my great-uncle's first cars, originally left to her in the will. They're a 1958 Chevrolet Impala and a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere Fury, which is my favorite car. I saw the movie Christine when I was 6 years old in 1996. Ever since, I love the car, because she knows that I'll take care of it and park it right beside the 67 Impala SS. I can already imagine the fallout that I'm going to get for that. Bravo to your family for not putting up with your EA's BS and for recognizing the good person you are. Enjoy your cars as much as humanly possible. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.